Hi, it's Chris on the Vinyl Transmission channel, and I'm here to show my Saxon discography, starting from 1979 all the way up to releases in 2016. I think I'm going to show you 40 pieces, a ton of vinyl, some CDs, and then at the end of the video we'll look at all their live albums. So we're going to see all their studio albums. I have a physical copy of each one, and then at the end of the video we'll look at their incredible collection of live albums. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm just going to raise a toast to you for tuning in and to get enough calories to go through all these records. Cheers. So I'm an American. They're a super British band, so I hope it's okay that I can talk about them. But I've been listening to this band as long as I've been listening to any other hard rock and heavy metal act. And they've just produced a ton of great material. I could not rank these albums. That would be really hard for me to do because they have just maintained a level of excellence. We'll see, you know, kind of their commercial slump and when a lot of people lost touch with them. And there's definitely some, you know, good reasons why. But, man, they course-corrected pretty quick and they've continued to be great. And at the end, we'll also talk about, they have 2 releases on the calendar, which I'm totally excited about. So let's go ahead and jump in. We'll just start with the first one. And this is the debut album from 1979, Saxon. And the cover is nowhere near as good as the back picture. I just love the lo-fi nature of that stage setup and the smoke and even I think that's Paul Quinn there on the end, and he kind of looks awkward, doesn't he, with holding the Strat and everything. And they were kind of an older band. They were kind of like, or at least that was my perception of, they were kind of longer in the tooth by the time I heard of them. So they always had sort of an ugly, you know, they're not pretty boys, put it that way. And, you know, definitely a blue-collar sense about them. And, of course, this album, which really doesn't get the respect it deserves, but it really hits all the major points, I think, that Saxon does through the years. So, for example, Frozen Rainbow really connects them, obviously, to Rainbow and classic rock and that in general, and is kind of a mystic song, pretty much out of the canon of what you think of hard-rocking Saxon, which, you know, Saxon, Lynyrd Skynyrd, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, you kind of mix them up, and I think you've got Saxon. And they pull the best from those bands, I feel. You know, they just do a great job of, you know, they're not the most original in their approach ever, but they just pull the best from everything, and they always manage to create a unique mix that is their own. So, Stallions of the Highway, Still Fit to Boogie. These songs were just so cool. I discovered this album pretty early. I mean, I was probably listening to this even before Crusader came out. And so I've always liked it. I always found it, you know, charming. It's definitely nowhere near the killer debut that maybe, you know, it's not Kill 'Em All. It's really, you know, much more, not as advanced. You know, it's not as signature Saxon. But it's still a cool record. And this is from the box set. And we'll see a few from these when I don't have the vinyl to show you. But this box set is incredible. This covers the first 10 releases there. And every single album has bonus tracks. And in many cases, more bonus tracks than even the original album contained tracks. So, as does this one. So, Saxon, that's the first one. The next album here is Wheels of Steel from 1980. And I remember buying this on cassette and reading about this band in the magazines. And Motorcycle Man, Stand and Be Counted, Strangers in the Night. These are some classic songs. Wheels of Steel, Machine Gun, Susie Hold On. This is a fantastic record. Let's talk about one player on this, the drummer, Pete Gill. He is on all the first 4 albums, I guess, and had an injury, left the band, and then for a brief time was with Motorhead. And he's the drummer on Orgasmatron and the new material that was on the No Remorse comp. So Pete Gill, pretty prestigious guy. Not a name you hear a lot, but he did all the early Saxon albums and those killer Motorhead records. This is just a great album. I just still love it. It's really more of their definitive sound, hard rocking, the messages of these transportation themes. I think Wheels of Steel is actually about a train. I could have this mixed up. There's Motorcycle Man. You know, there's songs about airplanes, trains, lots of transportation, which again is kind of like a guy thing, a blue-collar thing to be obsessed with. But it actually helps in the historical stuff that they have really mined all their career. So Wheels of Steel, 1980. Okay, also from 1980, you know, the amazing rate that these guys were making music, like so many people were at that time. But Strong Arm of the Law, here again, they just make it even better. This back cover is insanely cool with the guitar up in the air, the drum set, and just the light on the smoke. You know, just absolutely cool. Heavy Metal Thunder, To Hell and Back Again, Dallas 1 p.m. Really great songs. Dallas 1 p.m. about the JFK assassination. Heavy Metal Thunder, one of the most memorable riffs. And that is the track that when Biff Byford, the lead singer of Saxon, fronted Metallica, that is the song that they did. So not a lot of people you can say, remember when they remember when they fronted Metallica and did one of their songs? That's not a long list. So killer album. This just has great storytelling, which they have throughout their material. It's on the Carrere label. Let's talk about one more band member before we go forward. We talked about Pete Gill. Let's talk about Dobby, Steve Dawson, the bass player. Had such a killer boogie style, a prominent sound on these Saxon records, and is said to be the inspiration for the bass player in Spinal Tap. And if you look at some of the images with the mustache and just the swagger, it's very believable that it is. But a great player, iconic player for these early Saxon records. I mean, it just gives them, one of the strengths of Saxon is that every player, Biff Byford may not be objectively the greatest singer, but everybody who's ever been in this band plays with personality and a lot of refinement. Strong Arm of the Law, 1980. Saxon, Denim and Leather. Just turning that up just a little bit. So cool. So Denim and Leather, 1981. And here they're just as solid as they could be. I mean, the songs are great. There's Dobby, who we were just talking about there on the end with the handlebar mustache. There's Biff in the middle. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to distinguish from one another. Pete Gill and Paul Quinn and everybody. But, yeah, the song Denim and Leather, a fantastic metal anthem. I mean, look at that logo. They had their logo just perfect from the get-go. So I can't believe we're here already to talk about this album, because this is such a great record. I mean, this is as good as Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest. It added to such the momentum of this band to show what a great live act they were. And just look at them on the back. I mean, they're just... You can just feel the energy off of these guys. Now here, Pete Gill is gone. So now Nigel Glockner is in the band. And he is just absolutely killer. He's one of the... I mean, he's Lee Kerslake. He's... he is Bill Ward. He is just killer. He just brings a sound and an energy, and he's just gotten better and more interesting over the years. This is Paul Quinn, and he is famously kind of wearing a wig right here, I believe. But I think it looks awesome anyway. Steve Dawson, Dobby, is not wearing a wig. And Biff Byford, killing it. Nigel Glockner. And then this is Dawson. Oh, Graham Oliver, sorry. Yeah, Graham Oliver. And he is sort of the more, maybe the more Angus Young, the more rhythmic player, I think, from the riffs. There's some great stuff on YouTube of hearing him play. Him and Dobby, ultimately, it's a few years down the road, but I'll go ahead and tell the story now. They both got left the band. One of them, and I forget which one, was supposed to have sold like a live album out from under the other guys and left the band. And in 1983, we have Power and the Glory. And this is a great album. And let me mention that Andrew Ballina, who has a great channel here on YouTube, he's a big fan of 90s Saxon. And he asked us to see this video. So if you're enjoying it, you know, thank Andrew, because he gave me the idea to show all these. And Andrew, if I'm the only one who said your name right, let me know in the comments, would you? But this album just has an amazing sound. I don't know that the songs are as memorable, although I love This Town Rocks, Nightmare, Red Line, Power and the Glory is an absolute killer. But the energy of this is absolutely amazing. And actually, the stuff I just said about the songwriting, that was kind of how I felt about it for years and years. But it's just one of their best records. I mean, it never bogs down in anything. I mean, it's very, very listenable. And I think Andrew mentioned this was his favorite of the early 80s stuff. In 1984, we have Saxon's Crusader album. This is the first one that I was probably waiting for to be released. And I was just thrilled when this came out. And I have a million memories of listening to this album. It was produced by Kevin Beamish, who did REO's Speedwagon. So it definitely has a poppy vocal, you know, reverb and stuff. And so I'm probably stronger on this album than most folks, and they might be right. I'm kind of showing you there the lyrics there in Spanish. This is not an American pressing. And but Crusader, Sailing to America, I think is a great song. Just Let Me Rock is a great song. Rock City. There's a ballad on it, Do It All For You. I think it's all right. It's a hell of a lot better than some of the other terrible ballads by metal bands in the 80s. But, you know, Sailing to America, you can take that as a cheesy stab at the American market, but it's also, you know, a great historical subject, a tune, a great, you know, great Saxon song. So, you know, it's both. But I love this record still. I think it's great. And, you know, they have definitely not abandoned many of the songs on this. So Saxon Crusaders is one of my favorites. In 1985, we have Innocence Is No Excuse. And this album, I absolutely love it. There's definitely some filler material on this, but Rock and Roll Gypsy is one of my favorite songs of theirs. Broken Heroes is a ballad done right, and that was just you know, a pretty standout in 1980s. And so, you know, again, it has more of a you know, reverb type sound, but I really like this record a lot. And in fact, they have a live album coming out, I think, within the next few weeks that is that tour. And as many albums as I'm going to show you, that is real tempting. I would love to see. They have a DVD, CD package of that tour. Here is the CD version of it. This is from that box set. And just to plug that box set again, because it's just chock full of bonus tracks and everything. And I love the imagery on this. You can't maybe see here, but these are so funny. She's shooting him with the arrow. She's dragging him through the street with a bag on his head. And then she's, killed him at a picnic or something. But very funny, very cool. And in 1986, here is Rock the Nations. This album sounds really good. The songs aren't as memorable, and it probably begins the decline of their commercial and their artistic fortunes here for a couple of albums. But one of my favorite album covers, just showing this heavy metal unity, the eagle coming in there. Love this album cover. And it's a very good Saxon album. Like I said, the songs aren't as memorable. I don't know how many of these tracks they even really play in their live set, but things are about to get worse. So this is actually pretty good. Rock the Nations. In 1988, Saxon put out Destiny, and this album has some very good tracks on it. But the first song on this is a cover of Ride Like the Wind by Christopher Cross. And that was a very fatal decision. It just really killed the band commercially, and they had to really work back from there. But there's some good material on this album. Even Ride Like the Wind is not a bad version. As a lead-off track, it's a disaster. But Jericho Siren, Red Alert, there's good material. The band sounds great. There's really nothing wrong with this other than the fact that it practically killed the band commercially. In 1991, Saxon put out Solid Ball of Rock. And this album ended, the world's shortest slump, because this is a great record. Absolutely great songs, a great sound. One of the times I saw Saxon live, Biff introduced one of the songs and said, "This is, from one of our comeback albums," meaning they've had 10 comeback albums. And it kind of starts with this one, where people talking about Saxon's back. And we're going to see that really until 2015, over and over again. You could call every album that we're going to look at their comeback album, because most every album I'm going to show you is pretty great. Solid Ball of Rock. In 1992, Forever Free. This is a fantastic Saxon album. The title track is a great song. I love their version of Just Want to Make Love to You. It shows that, if they wanted to be Whitesnake, they could. Again, it's sort of where they borrow from so many different sounds, but they can make it their own. Iron Wheels, that is a great track. Historical ballad, very killer. In the band at this point is a guy named Nibs Carter, who replaced Dobby. And he's there on the far end in the jacket without the shirt. And he's great. And he's still in the band today. He's been a great contributor to the band. Has a very unique bass sound. Does not sound like Steve Harris. Has a much more softer bass sound. Not softer exactly, but he doesn't do the Steve Harris rattle. He's got his own sound. Love him. And in 1995, we have Dogs of War. This is the last album to have Graham Oliver on it. This is a great record with lots of killer songs. Dogs of War is a great title track. The Great White Buffalo is a great song. The whole album sounds great. It lives up to this cover. Let me talk about the box set that this is from. So the last several vinyl records that I showed you are actually from this box set, Eagles and Dragons, which overall sounds very good, although they don't sound as great as some of the original pressings. And we'll get to some of that later on. But it sounds great. It was a great deal for me. I mean, I'm still loving this. It came with an autographed cover of the box set cover. So this isn't an official album cover except for the box set. So in 1997 we have Unleash the Beast. And Graham Oliver is now out of the band and Doug Scarrett is in the band. And this is a killer record with a gothic feel that you can see from the front cover. But Unleash the Beast, Ministry of Fools, All Hell's Breaking Loose. This is a killer, killer Saxon album. And Doug Scarrett really helped put them into the more modern era. I mentioned Graham Oliver's kind of got such a great primitive approach, and Doug Scarrett is just sort of more of a modern player and was a great introduction to the band. And this lineup has been so steady. Biff Byford, Doug Scarrett, Paul Quinn, Nibs Carter, and Nigel Glockler. I mean, that is really the longest running lineup of Saxon. 1999, we have Metalhead. A great record, a very entertaining heavy metal cover with this sci-fi theme. Very cool. But one of their best albums, I think, Conquistador, Are We Travelers in Time, Song of Evil. This is just great stuff. It's a great album. This is from the box set. There you have the Biff and the band, the individual members. For a couple albums, Nigel Glockner had to bow out, and Prince Randall was in on this album. Let's talk about the producer too. Charlie Bauerfield is his name, and he had a lot to do with their success and their sound. I think he's on 3 albums. There's one album he bowed out, which I think Rainer Hansel did the production on. Apparently those two don't get in the same room together, and but all these albums sound great from Saxon. Their later albums. In 2001, we have Killing Ground, and this is one again that I vividly remember. Saxon's back, like they've been back, man. They've been back for a decade. Here they do Court of the Crimson King, Rock Is Our Life. Coming Home, that's a great ballad. Until Hell Freezes Over, Killing Ground. So yeah, covering King Crimson. This album cover really gives you a feel of the warmth of the sound. This is another one with Fitz Randall there. But a great record. 2004, Lionheart. This is just absolutely amazing. Witchfinder General. They're really, I mean, they're a very different band than Wheels of Steel at this point, I have to admit. But they're still true to that. But this just has the song Lionheart, Beyond the Grave is one of my favorite heavy metal songs. And this is an amazing album. This is also from the box set. Very humble picture of them on the rocks there. This is a CD version of that. And this has an extra DVD which has a different, like a rough mix of the album, and has, I think, even a video for some of the tracks. In 2007, they did the Inner Sanctum. This is also with Charlie Bauerfield as the producer. Just an amazing sound on this record. State of Grace. The album just sounds so great. The cover is a good indication of just how heavy it is. This is one of my favorite album covers of theirs, front and back. But just another great one. You know, Saxon, I mentioned some other bands. Motorhead would be another band to compare Saxon to. They're just reliable. You know, if you don't like Motorhead, you're not going to like any of their albums. But if you like Motorhead, you'll probably find that you enjoy just about every album they did. And I think Saxon's exactly the same way. So here again in 2007 is another comeback album from Saxon. They had participated in a British TV show, which was sort of like a reinvention of them, and they did change their sound a little bit. It kind of became a little more cinematic. And Demon Sweeney Todd, I think that was around the time that that movie came out. And but God, this is a great record. Has some of their best stabs at acoustic sounds. Slow lane blues. Man, this is just a great record. One of my favorite album covers. Now, so I showed you that box set, Eagles and Dragons. Let me show you an original issue of this vinyl, because this is the only one that I have doubles of. So this is what the box set and the Demon Records looks like. But here is the original issue. And there's just a lot more detail on this really cool cover. And it's a double vinyl treatment. Really, let's see here. I love that picture of Paul Quinn. And here is the CD version of Into the Labyrinth. And that'll lead us into the next one here, Call to Arms. This was another comeback album. They're next in a row. And this is from 2011. And this started a string of where I was able to see them live. So I've now seen them live about 6 times, starting with this album. And I just couldn't feel luckier. I mean, I never saw them back in the day. Really didn't have the opportunity. But I've had a bunch of chances to see them. And they're just amazing. Back in '79, this whole album is great. Back in '79, just a great anthem that, harkens to all metalheads. Afterburner, Call to Arms, Mists of Avalon. This is a great album. It's one of the later ones that I don't have on vinyl. In 2013, they released Unplugged and Strung Up. And this is a sort of an acoustic and symphonic version of many of their songs, including all the way back to Frozen Rainbow. And it really is fantastic. I mentioned the cinematic element. It's totally on display with this. You have even Crusader, which was the opening music that we heard in the beginning of this, was this orchestral version of Crusader. But a very cool album. I would still love to hear them do like a straight up acoustic blues album. I would love that from them. This is more symphonic, more cinematic, more soundtrack-ish. Also in 2013, they put out Sacrifice, which is a very, very good record. Sounds great. Some really good songs. The one time I did worry about them was at the end of this album when they did Standing in a Queue. I just thought, to write a song about waiting in line, you may have reached the end of the line of things to write about. But man, did they kill it with their next record. And I'm really going to brag on them here, because this is 2015, Battering Ram, and this record is better than Book of Souls, Iron Maiden. It's better than Redeemer of Souls, Judas Priest. It's better than 13 by Black Sabbath. It's just a fantastic record. It is one of the best records in their catalog. It might be their best record. Everyone is just contributes so great. They have Kingdom of the Cross is a very original closer for a Saxon album. Battering Ram comes on just like the title would suggest. And there's the full band. Nigel Glockner had a heart attack at some point, but he rejoined the band, and I was able to even see this tour. And so I thought that was outstanding. So we're going to look at now the live albums, like I said. And just before we do that, I'm going to transition here. Let's talk about their record label, Carrere. You can see that last word there. So a lot of their early albums are on that. This is a cool comp. with Demon, Rage, Dokken, Heartbreak. I love this cover. And of course I love how Saxon is at the top. It takes the name from a Saxon song. And very cool cassette. But the Carrere label was started by a French guy, so it was kind of odd that they ended up on that label. And they became known for, the guy who started the label promoted other French singers. But he actually did write, co-wrote one of the songs on here for Francois Hardy. So Mr. Carrere there actually has a songwriting credit there. So there is the Francois Hardy Saxon connection that you've been wondering about. So let's look at all these live albums like I promised. So just to revisit here, this is the first live album we looked at, The Eagle Has Landed. Absolutely iconic. This is from that CD box set. It has a ton of bonus tracks. And here is the vinyl reissue, which is a double and contains those bonus tracks. The Eagle Has Landed. So they kept with that theme, and they did it for subsequent tours. So they really did a great job of every couple years giving you one of these where you got to hear all those albums in between played live. And they recently released many of these as the Vinyl Horde box set on vinyl, which I have not gotten. I mean, this would be split up into, I think, 4 LPs, which just is cool, but seems kind of ridiculous. But this is a great record. The Eagle Has Landed 3. And, you know, the band keeps advancing with their sound. They are able to stay contemporary. And this is a great sounding record with, you know, songs between the intervening albums. This is Heavy Metal Thunder, live in Wacken. This is just incredibly full of CDs and DVDs. Amazing. And then this is the live tour from Sacrifice, live in Manchester. Fantastic. I just always love hearing them on their latest album. So that takes us to the very last record we're going to look at. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hard to talk about these many records and just know exactly how much to say. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, let me feel your power in the comments, alright? So here is their most recent release. This is amazing. And then you have the live shot there with Biff and the crowd. But this is this has, not only does it have 2 LPs, it has a Blu-ray and 2 CDs. And the Blu-ray is absolutely awesome. It has like 3 concerts on it, and at one point each of the band members gets passed up to them a battle jacket from the crowd, and then so at the end of the show they're all wearing these battle jackets, and it's just absolutely really cool. And they have a new album called Thunderbolt due next year in 2018, and then as I mentioned they have a live album coming out as I'm recording this in a couple weeks that is I guess a live tour CD, DVD of the Innocence Is No Excuse tour. So, hope you enjoyed the video.
Thank you for watching.